Hello and a warm welcome to everyone joining us today. I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. We've designed this session especially for administrators in the Windows ecosystem. In this session, we are going to focus on the key features and functionalities that DDI Central offers, and more importantly, how they can streamline and simplify your core network operations. Over the next hour, you'll see how DDI Central brings all your Windows DNS and DHCP servers, wherever they are housed in your infrastructure, into a single unified console. You'll see not just real-time visibility, but true operational control over every distributed site. Every Windows administrator knows the challenge. Managing DNS and DHCP across multiple domains, data centers, and cloud can quickly become a juggling act of tools and scripts. What if you could replace that mundane tasks with a single window where your admins can just click and play one pane of glass that shows every lease, every zone, and every scope in your entire global footprint? Last month, we hosted a similar webinar tailored for Linux ecosystem. If you happen to miss that session, don't worry. You can catch the full recording on our official YouTube channel, ManageEngine DDI Central. Just search for it and tune in at your convenience. Today's focus, however, is all about walking you through the practical capabilities that DDI Central brings to the table, from unified DNS, DHCP, and IP address management to advanced integrations and automation that make life easier for IT admins. A very quick introduction. I'm your host, Akshara GJ, product expert from ManageEngine. I collaborate closely with the marketing teams for ManageEngine DDI Central and Cloud DNS. A big part of what I do is talk about the critical network infrastructure services like DNS, DHCP, and IPAM. I'm here to share insights and knowledge that will help you harness the full potential of these critical network services through a DDI solution. So what is DDI? DDI is a unified solution that tightly integrates the three core network services: DNS, DHCP, and IPAM. We know that every enterprise, every business that runs online needs these three services together, but they all run these services in silos. There are plenty of benefits that we can reap when we integrate these three services together. We'll get to that quickly. So before that, I'll give you a short introduction of DDI Central. So DDI Central is an on-prem software-only control plane for your DNS and DHCP servers. You can connect your existing Windows or Linux servers to manage them through one console. So you don't have any servers? Don't worry, just install DDI Central on any Linux machine and you'll have built-in DNS and DHCP services ready to go. So if you're migrating from any other prominent players in the market like Infoblox or Efficient IP or Blue Cat, and if you have used any appliances, you can just onboard into DDI Central with the configurations that you've managed from these solutions. So you don't need any appliances here. So you'll bring your own machine and then we'll be acting as an overlay over your existing servers. What does DDI Central manage? As you can see on the screen, we manage Microsoft DNS and DHCP servers, Linux-based IAC-bind DNS and IAC-based DHCPD servers, and we also can manage all your remote DNS and DHCP clusters spread across the globe. So we need some basic connection through point-to-point or IP-MPLS augmented via VPN or SD-WANs. So basically, there must be some connection to these sites, to your on-prem sites, and we can easily manage it through DDI Central. So DDI Central will help you visualize, automate, analyze, and take full control over your remote DNS and DHCP clusters. And not only that, you can also manage your domains that you host with prominent cloud vendors like AWS Route 53, Microsoft Azure, Cloudflare, and Google Cloud. And an interesting addition is we also have a cloud observability module through which you can manage all the AWS cloud assets like VPCs, subnets, and ECS, EC2s, and RES instances. So all that you can just monitor. But in terms of DNS domains, there is a two-way synchronization established, so you can have direct control over your domains and records. We'll delve into that in detail in the later segments of the session. So let's get into the architecture first. So this is the basic architecture of a Windows infrastructure. So basically you'll be installing, so we have two types of installables in DDI Central. So one for Linux, we have just an exe file. So you'll be installing this exe file, and with that machine, you'll be controlling all your remote sites. You can control your local as well as the remote sites. So for this, the WinRM protocol is required. So only with the WinRM protocol, you'll be able to establish an agentless communication and authentication. So you can easily set up continuous visibility and keep monitoring your remote sites from one single console. So basically, there's only one installation required for Windows. Suppose if your enterprise or your organization manages both Linux and Windows, we would advise you to install the Linux-based installation, and that goes with two files actually. So you'll be installing both the management UI console through which this is actually the control plane, the main app console through which you'll be controlling the configurations, and the discovery node agent will be installed on every onboarded DNS and DHCP server. So this will help you maintain continuous visibility with the app console. Since our session is fully focused on Windows-based ecosystems, we'll be focusing on Windows-based features offered by DDI Central. And the first step would be creating clusters. So let me show it in the interactive demo that we've set up for you. So the first step would be creating clusters. Clusters are nothing but logical grouping of servers. This is very essential if you're into managing distributed sites. So in case if you have distributed DNS and DHCP servers in various sites, you can add each site as a cluster. So when you add each site as a cluster, you'll have to name your cluster for unique identification, and then you'll have to specify the type of servers running in the cluster. So it's either going to be Linux, fully Linux based, or Windows based, or it's going to be managing cloud configurations. So you'll have to choose that, and then you select the type of services running in the cluster. So this is the first important step that you'll need to do when you're onboarding into DDI Central. So once you create the clusters, you can easily onboard your server. The next immediate step would be onboarding your servers. So you can onboard as many servers as you want within a cluster, and you'll be immediately taken to this page once you create your cluster. So enter the server name and the server IP and the type of services running within the server. And if you're running AD domains, you can specify if the server is going to be the primary domain controller, and you can also give all of the essential details. And if you'd like to opt in for discovery, you can choose what all this services that you're going to opt in for, what all this configurations that you'd like to discover, whether it's going to be DNS only, DHCP only, or both. Or if you can just skip discovery if you'd like to onboard empty servers, I mean normal servers, and then make configurations to those new servers. And that's about it. So once you've onboarded your servers, in the servers page, you can see all those server status, and you can see essential system metrics like the CPU usage, memory usage, disk usage, and everything. You can view it from time to time, and you can monitor each server's health. And then you can, in case you're ejecting a certain server for maintenance and then again onboarding it. You can just give server reconfigurations. All the configurations of the server before ejecting it would be stored in our database, and when you're onboarding it on the same IP, you can reconfigure the same configurations. And you can, in case you feel this server is not updated properly, you can just give the DHCP rediscover or DNS rediscover based on the services that run inside each server. You can give the service type rediscovery. So you can just give the rediscover option, and you can flush the DNS cache as and when required. And that's about programming the servers. And now if you'd like to customize this application in terms of language or idle timeout and other polling intervals, we have the system page over here. You can customize the application, and the next crucial step would be onboarding your users. So you can click on the add user and you can start onboarding your users. So we offer 4 types of roles. The admin enjoys all the privileges without any limitations, and the auditor role was introduced for compliance team, or the ones who work closely with the compliance team to monitor the audit logs. So they can filter out audit logs for a specific network segment or specific zone, and they can submit it for compliance. And then we have the guest user. The guest user can just monitor the configurations. This is meant for senior stakeholders who are meant to supervise the configurations. So you can just give them guest roles and they'll be able to see the configurations, monitor the configurations, but they can't make any changes to the configurations. And then comes the operator role, where you can fine-tune the permissions. Like when you select an operator role, you can choose the type of choose the cluster they would have access to, and you can select the type of service they will have access to, whether it's going to be DNS only, DHCP only, or DDI. So in here you can specify, if you choose for DNS only, you can choose the zones they'll have access to. Like you can specify DNS only and select the zones. They'll select the specific zones they'll have access to, so that they don't have access to the entire zones in your infrastructure and then in your cluster. And then you can select DCP only or DDI. This gives whole access of the cluster to a particular operator. And for each cluster, you can customize their footprint. Like you can limit their footprint for each cluster, and that's how you limit the give limitations to a particular user. And once you're done adding users, you can enable TOTP authentication for them. You can view their audit logs. You can see who was logged when, and the entire timestamp, and who is logged out and everything. And you can filter it out and submit it for compliance. And the next crucial step would be configuring the SMTP host. This is a mandatory step. You cannot skip this step, because any key notification that DDI Central communicates is through emails. So it is from without an SMTP host, you'll not be able to receive any notifications from DDI Central. So make sure you configure the SMTP host. So for SMTP configuration, you will specify the from address and specify the authentication type. So we offer basic authentication, just the username and password, and then you can opt in for OAuth authentication as well. So we offer OAuth authentication with 2 providers, Microsoft Azure and Google. So you can choose any one of those providers, and you can configure the SMTP host. And for user login, we offer 2 types of authentication, though OAuth is mentioned over here, but we offer OAuth only for email authentication. So there are 2 authentication. You can onboard your LDAP servers, and you can provide LDAP authentication, or you can simplify the login for your users with SAML, which is a single sign-on method of login. And we have SAML integration with prominent identity providers like Ping, Okta, OneLogin, and Microsoft Azure. You can integrate with these identity providers and simplify the login process for your users. And then you can create contact groups. So here in contact groups, you mention each user who's going to be in this contact group, and then you mention the cluster they'll have access to. So any key event that is happening within the cluster will be notified to those members in the cluster, and you can save the configurations. So this makes sure that only those members are notified of the key events. So this is how you restrict access to a cluster using contact groups. And then let us get into, okay, when you create a cluster and onboard your servers, when you're done onboarding your servers, onboarding your users, so each server may have its own configuration. So how do you apply a policy collective to all those servers in the cluster? So for this, we have something called global configurations. I hope the screen is visible now. And say you're onboarding 3 servers into a cluster. So server A has got its own global configurations. Global configurations are nothing but standalone configurations of a server. So there are standalone DNS and DHCP servers for each cluster, for each servers. So in this case, we are aggregating all those server configurations together and pushing it to all the servers. So all the servers stay on the same page. So for certain settings, like there are certain options, DHCP options, which can bear only a single value. In that case, say for an RRL settings, it can bear only a single setting at a time. So we make sure that the latest onboarded server's value is copied for the RRL settings. So we don't aggregate the configurations in this case. We take the latest onboarded server's value and make it as the cluster's configuration. So all the servers are maintaining the same configurations, and for the settings kind of, all those settings bear a single value. They have the value of the latest onboarded server. So whenever you make certain configurations within DDI Central, within a cluster, say you are altering an option or making certain DHCP configuration, anything like that, for each configuration you make, that will be applied for all the DHCP servers within the cluster. So this is how you apply collective policies, collective configurations for all the servers in the cluster. So you can easily scale up your configurations for all the servers in the cluster. So for whole network side, for any one simple configuration can be applied for whole servers in the cluster. So let's quickly dive into the DNS module. For all the domains that you discovered during the discovery process will be listed over here. You can create a new domain if you want. So we offer 3 types of domains: authoritative domain or a forwarder domain. So for forwarders, you will be mentioning the DNS servers for which the queries should be forwarded to the forwarders. So here you can mention the list of DNS servers and the forwarders. And we also have the option for creating a stub zone. Here you'll be mentioning the DNS servers and the stub servers. And lastly, for the authoritative domain, to create a new domain, just click on add domain, and then enter the essential values, enter the name servers, primary name server, secondary name server, and you can create zone scopes. Zone scopes and DDI Central in Windows DNS infrastructure helps you tailor responses, tailor different responses to different clients. So this should be coupled with query resolution policies. When they are coupled with query resolution policies, you'll be able to tailor responses for different network segments within your infrastructure. Say if you want to, your HR department and the sales department might be accessing the same domain, but you'll be feeding different response for the HR department and different response for the sales department. So in that case, this DNS zone scope will help you tailor responses of the same domain to different network segments. And if you'd like to have dynamic IP update. So for DNS records, it's always a static IP address, a static IP response that we always feed for these records. If you'd like to update these IPs, and if you'd like dynamic IP updates to these records, you can enable this option, which is the dynamic DNS option. Here, what it'll do is it'll couple a DHCP server. With the help of a DHCP server, the records IP will be updated by the DHCP server. So this brings in the synergy of both DNS and DHCP together. This way, when, for example, if you set up DDNS, user entering your organization, for in addition to assigning an IP address for the user, and automatically an address record or a host name will be automatically created by the DNS server, in addition to the DHCP server assigning an IP address for the user. So this way, as users join and leave the network, records and IP addresses are automatically allocated to the users joining a network and leaving the network. Once the domain is created, it will be displayed over here. And this is the case of a zone scope. So this is the original domain. And if you'd like to create versions of this domain, you can just specify the scope name, and then the zone scopes will be created. And for each zone scope you create, you can create as many records as you want. So here you can create your own custom tailored records, and you can feed this as a response with the query resolution policy. And click through a domain name if you'd like to access this records. So these are the records we support in DDI Central. So once you get into a domain, you can also start signing the DNS records. So you have the DNS sec button here. So once you click on it, the DDI Central will start signing the records. So let me show you. So it will automatically create the DNS key records, KSK, and DS records for a domain, and this will help you in domain spoofing, and you can preserve the integrity of your records. So this is very essential if you're so security focused. So you can get into the records and you can make amends to them. You can import them as bind, or you can export them as a text file. And so that's about the records. And you can capture audit logs. So in case you have so many domains that you'd like to import within DDI Central, you can use the import option here. So this will help you import domains into DDI Central using a zip file. And then you can easily capture audit logs for every key activity performed on your managed DNS objects. Like you can select a domain name and select a record, and based on the action that was executed on a particular object, you can filter out the audit logs. You can see who has done what easily, customize the time window, and you can capture the audit logs and you can submit it for compliance. So you can download it as a PDF or a CSV file, and you can submit it for compliance. And then we have the analytics module. This module helps you track the DNS queries to a particular domain. So this shows the key performance indicators for all the domains in your infrastructure. So we capture domain query analytics for all the hosted domains, the ones that are housed in your DNS DHCP servers, and for all those blocked domains that are blocked by DNS firewall policies, and for all those non-hosted domains as well. The non-hosted domains are essentially all the public-facing domains like Google, Facebook, and everything. So we also captured domain query analytics for that. And you can just click through a domain name and you can see the key performance indicators, and you can see the IPs within your network who has accessed this particular domain name and the number of queries they've made within a time window. So this donut plots will give you a quick visual snapshots and the type of records they've accessed. And in the presentation, I can show you. So this also shows the response code analytics. So we have different response codes, and you have the total number of queries for each response code. So you can see the number of queries that were successfully resolved and everything. You can easily track them out with the response code analytics. So you can track the performance of your domains with the analytics module. So the next thing would be DNS configurations. So here you can create client subnets. Here you can group certain specific segments within your network, name them, and you can use them in DNS query resolution policies. So in case you want to apply certain specific policies for certain segments, make sure you create a named client subnet and group them properly, group the appropriate subnets and name them. And then this includes both IPv4 and IPv6, and you can use them in query resolution policies. So here in query resolution policies, when you create a new query resolution policy, you name them and you specify the action, whether it's going to allow a certain criteria or deny a certain criteria, and you can specify multiple criteria. All you have to do is couple them with a certain conditional operator, whether it's going to be and or, depending on your requirement. You can choose the conditional operator, and if you have you have the match list and the does not match list. So based on your requirement, you can specify multiple criteria. The criteria could be a client subnet, a specific segment within your network, or FQDN, or a selected a customized time window. Within a time window, if a certain query occurs, and if you want to customize the response, you can just do it using the query resolution policy. Or if you'd like to customize the response based on the internet protocol, you can very well do it. Likewise, you can have many criteria coupled with a particular conditional operator, and for every criteria that matches the specific condition that you specify here, a zone scope will be fed as response. So that's how easily you can customize the response for a particular query to a domain name. And then you can we'll just move into the DNS firewall policy. So here in DNS firewall policy, you can mention the domain name one by one and add them one by one using the add button. Or if you have a lot of malicious domains you'd like to block, you can import them as a CSV file. So basically, this DNS firewall policy blocks all your malicious domain that you mentioned here. So it maintains a block list. So if the domain name that your device in your network is trying to access matches the one in the blacklist, it will immediately redirect the user to safety, and it will be captured in the query analytics module. So here you'll be mentioning the category that you're interested in. So we have a list of categories based on your industry. You can choose the theme of your choice, or you can create a category of your own and start importing domains into that category. And if you're not sure of the subdomains that exist behind a particular domain name, you can just click on block subdomains, and all the subdomains of a particular domain name will be blocked. And you can start building your block list. So once your block list is built, and if the user tries to access any domain name, they'll be redirected to a custom URL, custom IP page, rather than the DNS query will be resolved to a particular custom IP rather than the original IP provided by the external authoritative DNS server. So all these activities are captured in the DNS analytics module. So if you get into the block domains list and you click through a block domain name, you can easily point out the IP address and the host that's been accessing over a particular period of time, and you can easily isolate these IPs, and you can see if they're infected or not. So you can use DHCP filters, and you can use their MAC address to filter them out of your network. So you can very well do it, and we'll be delving more into DHCP filtering in the further segments in this presentation. And Then you can, in case you feel your network is often targeted by DDoS attacks, you can configure DNS response rate limiting policies. Here you can specify the identical number of identical responses allowed per second, and you can also mention, you can specify the leak rate and the truncate rate. You can specify if you specify the leak rate as 3, every third access response will be allowed through, and if you specify the truncate rate as 2, every second access response will be truncated, and so on. You can just specify all those configurations right over here, and based on this, the response rate limiting will be executed. And if you have certain trusted clients, make sure you mention them in this exception list. So it goes with a conditional operator. So mention the allowed list details in the form of client subnet or FQDN. And based on the conditional operator that you specify, the criteria will be evaluated, and then they'll be allowed access response. Even say if a certain client would make any overwhelming response, so if you're not worried about them monopolizing your DNS servers, you can very well configure them under the exception list, and they'll be exempted from truncating. And then you can set up DNS recursion. You can specify the values, the timeout and the retry interval values. You can specify the DNS forwarders. You can append as many forwarder IPs as possible, and you can give a timeout value. And for the DNS cache, you can specify the cache parameters like maximum time to live, maximum negative time to live, and you can also make sure you enable the pollution protection. This helps prevent your DNS infrastructure from cache poisoning. So you can give all these values, and you can save the configurations. Once you've done all these configurations, just give the save button to finalize the configurations. And then to keep your DNS infrastructure up to date, you can configure the scavenging process. So basically, you schedule the scavenging. You mention the frequency of the scavenging process, whether it's going to take place weekly or monthly, and you specify the aging criteria. Like if for 30 days a certain record is inactive, then that record would be considered stale. And particularly for TXT records, you'll be mentioning it separately, like you will be specifying the aging criteria. Based on that, the DDI Central console will report all those stale records in here, and you can scavenge them immediately. You can purge them immediately, or you can reclaim them immediately. Or if you'd like to scavenge the process, start the scavenging process at the very moment, you can just click the scavenge now, and you can reclaim or delete the records in bulk using the actions button. Just have to select the records using these check boxes, and you can click on the reclaim button or the delete button. So that's about the scavenging process. And then we have scheduled DNS reports. So essentially, these DNS reports will have the query analytics data. So you can, your admin, based on the frequency of your reports, based on your requirements, you can schedule the DNS reports for a certain frequency, whether it's going to be weekly, monthly, or daily. That's depending on your requirements. You can configure them, and you can schedule the reports for all domains or select domains, and then you can restore certain versions within the application. Like if you want the latest 5 versions of the DNS query reports of select domains, you can very well do it. So the admin can compare and analyze these reports, and you can see what's happening within a particular domain or all the domains within your cluster. So that's about the DNS reports, and we'll quickly dive into the DHCP module. Here you can have direct control over the subnets, multicast subnets. So Windows offers these building blocks. So subnets, multicast subnets, static subnet, and supernet. And you can create DHCP policies, create a shared network, or superscopes as Windows call it. And you can create VLANs as well. So we'll we'll see how to create a subnet. So we'll open a subnet in edit mode, and you can see while creating a subnet, it will ask you for the network address and the network prefix. So let's see. Okay. So when you create a subnet, make sure you name them and specify the network address and the network prefix. And if you're creating an IPv6 subnet, or if you're not sure about a particular subnet, you can plan them in advance. You can calculate the IP address space within a subnet, and then you can give the prefix and the network address. You can and then you can give all of the details. So for a subnet, you can either give a DHCP server, you can associate it with a DHCP server directly, or you can associate it with a failover configuration. More on the failover configuration later. So basically, there'll be a primary and the secondary server for this failover configuration. You'll have to create the failover configuration beforehand and then select the failover configuration here. So if and you can include an exclusion range over here. So when you specify an exclusion range, the DHCP server will make sure to not touch the specified IP range within a particular subnet. You can activate or deactivate the subnet as and when required, and you can customize the lease duration for a subnet. And this is the crucial part where you declare the range within a subnet. So once you declare a range for a subnet, DHCP server will make sure to only provision IP addresses from the specified subnet within this range. So this is the active pool through which from which the DHCP server will provision IP addresses to the clients that satisfy the criteria for a particular subnet. So basically, IP addresses beyond this range will not be considered by the DHCP server. That's the main essence of it. And you can also create VLAN atop this subnet. So basically, you'll provide all those VLAN details, or if you have a VLAN already created, and you can just assign the existing VLAN to this subnet, and you can assign specific DHCP options. DHCP options and custom options are specific properties that are communicated. So these are the values that are communicated between the DHCP server and the DHCP client. So you can specify the properties that you would like to assign for the clients that fall under this particular subnet. So whenever a client is provisioned IP address from a certain subnet, these DHCP options will be provisioned to those clients as well. And you can create your own custom option within DDI Central. You can specify the vendor class, and then you can define the custom option. Here, we don't have the provision to assign define a custom option. That will be done in the config part. So within a subnet level or within any scope, you cannot define a custom option. That can be defined only in the config part. Here, you'll be able to select the custom option that you created in the config part. And here you can also customize the DDNS setting. In case you have a DDNS domain associated with a subnet, you can customize them using these settings, and then you can save the configurations. Once the subnet is created, we can, if you have multiple number of subnets in bulk, and if you'd like to have them in DDI Central, you can import them using a CSV file. And once the subnets are created, the DHCP server will start provisioning IP addresses from the subnet. You can also create multicast subnet. This becomes essential when you are broadcasting when you're in a broadcast mode. If you're broadcasting certain messages, like in a stadium, if you're trying to broadcast certain audio visuals to all the IPTVs in the stadium, you can just use the multicast subnet and choose the select members who are going to be part of those of the subscription list, and then you can go on with the broadcast. So you can use the multicast subnet for that. Instead of broadcasting it to the whole whole clients in the whole subnet, you can just selectively multicast it through the multicast subnet. And then in case you have certain critical devices that you'd like to manage it on your own, or you would like to have it manually managed, you can consider them, and you can import those static leases. The industry calls it as delegated scopes. Many network admins would like to manage their routers as delegated scopes. They would not want it to be managed by any other software. So in that case, you can just have the import button and import those static leases within DDI Central. So all DDI Central would do is not interfere in any part, just have it listed over here. So you can have it as a reference. Once you import all those static leases, DDI Central will make sure to create the static subnet for those leases. So all you have to do is just import the static leases, and automatically DDI Central will create static subnets and make sure that the DHCP server does not interfere with the static subnets. And then to hierarchically organize your IP address space, you can create as many subnets as you want and put them under a specific supernet. So in case any troubleshooting happens, or if your admin is engaged in troubleshooting clients in a particular subnet, they can easily locate them using the supernets. So we also have the option where you can hierarchically nest a supernet within a supernet. So you can establish nested supernets within DDI Central. So just mention the prefix, make sure the prefix is larger than the subnets you specify in here. You can also associate a specific static subnet under a supernet, and you can save the configurations. This way you can have a tree-like structure, and you can easily help your admin locate a particular subnet or a particular client within a subnet. And then we have the shared network. Shared network is nothing but a bunch of subnets put together. It treats them as a collective unit. And once you create a shared network, you can couple it with a DHCP policy and apply certain configurations to it, custom configurations to it. And you can also create a VLAN. So all you have to do is mention the VLAN details and assign it to under a particular subnet or a static subnet. And this is basically organizing them under a subnet. And this is basically associating a subnet with a VLAN. So you're building a VLAN atop this subnet, but it has, you mention it whether it's going to be assigned to a subnet or a static subnet. So whether you're going to build a VLAN atop a subnet or a static subnet. So that's the option that's the option to differentiate whether it's going to be a subnet VLAN or a static subnet VLAN. So that's about the VLAN. And finally, we move into DHCP policies. So let's see how a policy is created within DDI Central. Usually these kind of configurations requires admin to be a PowerShell ninja to manipulate such configurations. But with DDI Central, you can even ask a fresher to handle such configurations. With the basic knowledge, they can easily click and play, and they can program their DHCP servers and DNS servers using DDI Central. So let's see how a policy is created. Just name the policy, give them a description, and associate a DHCP server with a policy, and you will be assigning it on a global level or under a subnet. So global is essentially a standalone policy. So it is not associated under any particular scope, or it does not come under any particular scope. So you just mention the association level, and then you can activate or deactivate it as and when required. You customize the lease duration. So you have a lease duration for a subnet, and you can further customize it if clients satisfy a specific criteria before they are accommodated in a subnet. So based on the policy also makes changes to the lease duration. And you can, suppose if you have multiple criteria, multiple conditions, you can combine these conditions using a conditional operator. So let's see how you define a condition within DDI Central. So let's see. If in order to define a condition, you'll specify the criteria. So we have different types of criteria: vendor class, user class, or if you would like to filter out a specific MAC address, or and the vendor portion within a MAC address, you can very well do it. Or if you have a certain client identifier within the within a set of DHCP clients, you can very well do it. You can, in case you choose a MAC address and you'd like to filter out the vendor profile of the client using the MAC address, you can just click the equals to or not equals operator. So it's basically the comparative operator. It compares the value that you give below from the MAC address from that connects with the DHCP server. So here you give an exact value, or you can, if you're not sure, or if you're searching for a specific pattern within the DHCP packet, you can just prefer a wildcard if you would like to prefix a wildcard, and if you're only interested in the ending part. So if you're searching for a specific pattern at the end, you prefix a wildcard and search for a specific pattern. So the equals or not equals operator would search for a particular value that you've mentioned in the value box. And if you're searching for a particular wildcard, a pattern at the beginning of a particular string or in the DHCP packet, you choose the append wildcard option. Or if you're not searching for a specific pattern, just give the value and condition will be accepted. So it's basically there's no prefix or suffix. It's just the given value within the DHCP packet. So you can import, if in case you have so many MAC addresses that you'd like to mention, so you can import them as a CSV file. So you'll have a list of MAC addresses, a list in bulk. If you would like to import them into DDI Central and you would like to mention them as a criteria, you can import them and you can save the configurations. So in case the DHCP server encounters those devices with the specific MAC addresses, they'll be immediately assigned the properties associated with the particular policy. So you can set up DHCP options, custom options, or customize DDNS settings for this policy. And all these properties would be applied for the clients that fulfill a particular criteria that you specified under this policy. So that's how the policies are created. And once you're done with all these options over here, you can create DHCP reservations, which is also an important part in DHCP servers. So here you can create a fixed IP address. So far we've been discussing about leasing out IP addresses automatically by the DHCP server. So basically we program the DHCP server to assign IP addresses from a said pool range or subnet range. So here in DHCP reservation, we mention the MAC address of a device and select a particular IP address, so that this IP address is assigned as a fixed IP address for a particular client. So here, if you want a specific IP address to be assigned to a particular client, you can just click on add host. And if you're not sure about the IP address that you'd like to assign, associate this host under a particular subnet. This is a must. And when you do associate a host, a DHCP reservation under a subnet, and if you're not sure about the IP address, you can find the free IP within the subnet and assign it to the host. And you can apply special properties to it. You can just have the host can have its own DHCP options and custom options or customized DDNS settings, and then you can save the configurations. You can capture audit logs for your managed DHCP objects, be it a subnet, shared network, supernet. All the audit logs, who has done what, has been captured, can be captured and reported to the compliance team. And then we have DHCP configurations coming along, which is the failover configurations. We'll start with that. And for the failover configuration to be created, you mention the primary and the secondary DHCP server, and you specify the subnet for which the failover configuration should be associated to. And the crucial part is mentioning the mode of DHCP failover configuration, whether the servers are going to have a hot standby relationship, wherein one server acts as the active server and the other one acts as the standby server. So in case the active server fails, the standby comes to the fore and starts servicing the DHCP client request. In case you choose load balance, both the servers act in parallel, and they start servicing the DHCP requests in parallel. So the load balance percentage decides the percentage of the DHCP client requests handled by the primary and the secondary server. So if you mention a percent of 70 here, 70% of DHCP client requests will be handled by the primary, and 30% of the requests will be handled by the secondary server. And in case you choose hot standby, you specify the role of the primary server here. So whether the primary server is going to be the active server or the standby server, you can just mention the server role here. So the next would be the shared secret, so that both the failover partners have a secure communication within them, and that's about the failover configurations. So you can create a failover configuration, and then if you'd like to isolate a particular device from your network, you can select the DHCP server, and then you can specify certain clients. You can import the MAC addresses or one by one. You can just add them one by one, or you can import them in bulk. So I'll show you the feature over here. So here you can build your deny list and allow list by entering the MAC addresses one by one, or you can use the import option, wherein you import the MAC addresses into a specific list using CSV files, and then you basically deny access for certain devices that you deem malicious or infected. So you can just deny them access into a particular network by specifying the DHCP server first, and then you build your allow and deny list. So this is basically MAC filtering within the DHCP module. So you can so the ones you feel are infected by malware or something, you can just quarantine them using this DHCP filtering process. And for this, it does not apply for all the DHCP servers within the cluster. So I've already mentioned that in the config part, whatever configurations, it will be applied for all the servers within the cluster. In this case, this is an exception. Here, you'll be choosing the DHCP server in particular and apply the configurations. And you can create a class definition, the vendor and user classes. Two types of classes can be created, a vendor-oriented class or a user-oriented class. Here in the vendor-oriented class, you'll specify the data, a specific value that you'd like to locate. So once the clients do bear a class section, so within the class section, if a particular the DHCP server searches for a match, and if they satisfy the criteria, they'll fall under a particular vendor class, and all the options defined under the vendor class, or all the options grouped under the vendor class, would be applied for a particular DHCP client. And the same applies to the user class as well. Here in user class, you'll be mentioning the client identifier. So the DHCP server will be searching for the client identifier and applying the specific set of options grouped together under the user class. So that's how the classes are created and implemented. And then you can customize the DDNS settings. In case you want to apply it globally, you can customize the DDNS settings for all the clients, for all the universal clients that fall under this particular cluster or network site. You can just customize them under the config menu rather than on a specific scope level. And you can specify the options that are going to be applied universally for all the DHCP clients served by all the DHCP servers within the cluster. So this will be applied for all the DHCP servers within the cluster. And you can also define your custom options here. This is the only place where you can define your custom option. Just name your custom option, specify if it's going to be multi-valued, specify the data type. This is the most crucial part, and give a description, give an example value, and specify the option ID. So here you can give the custom option. So whenever you define a custom option, the DHCP server will search for a match in the class area, and the particular custom option will be applied for the DHCP client. And that's about the DHCP configurations. Then you can schedule reports for the DHCP servers. So like you can specify, just like DNS reports, you can specify the schedule frequency, whether it's going to be scheduled daily, weekly, or monthly. And for the contents within the DHCP report, you can go for all subnet report or a select subnet report. So in these reports, the content would be the IP utilizations of all the subnets or a select subnet. So you can just select the few subnets that you're interested in, and then you can choose the number of backup reports. So if you give latest 5 versions, the latest 5 versions, the latest 5 IP utilization reports of a particular subnet would be retained within the application. The admin can compare and analyze these reports, and they can take actionable they can take the necessary actions. So in case if they find out a particular subnet is over exhausted, they can easily arrive at a decision, and they can balance off the load from the subnet. And then we have the IPAM module. So in the IPAM module, you'll basically see all the correlations here. There are not much actions to do over here. You'll basically see all the visualizations and correlations over here. There are few actions indeed, but this is mainly concentrated upon the leases and all the visualizations associated with the leases. So here you'll see the essential stats like the usage per subnet. You can see the most utilized subnet, the top 5 utilized subnet, and then you can get into the lease module where you can see the active leases. So you can choose a subnet over here, and you can see the leases for a particular time period. So you can customize the time interval, and you can see the list of leases for that particular time period. And once you click through an IP, you can see the whole summary of an IP. So the page goes like this. Let me show it on. You have the DHCP leases over here. So you can see the DNS records associated with a particular IP. So this is the first section. This is very well shown over here. And this is the lease history part. So here you can see how an IP has evolved over time. And this is very useful in case of change management, or if you've ejected a certain device from your network and you're trying to onboard it again. You can backtrack its associations, and then you can place it back as per the IP address. You can place it in the same IP address again if you're placing it under the same IP. So you can just use the IP lease history part, and then the DNS queries section that you see over here gives the DNS footprint of the IP. So this shows you the whole DNS footprint, like what are all the domains that were accessed using this particular IP. So this is just a list of domain names and the total number of queries made to the domain names using that particular IP. And this is the visual plot. You can customize the time window over here, and you can see the hardly query load made to a particular domain name using that particular IP. Not just particular domain name, the whole DNS query footprint for a particular time window. And you can see the list of devices associated with a particular IP. And this gives you a colorful visual donut plot of all the type of devices associated with an IP over time. So you can have a whole 360-degree view of a particular IP. And then if you get into the lease part, we also have something called static leases. Rather than treating it as a delegated scope, we also have an option where DDI Central reports you of the status of those static IPs. So it will show you, it will have automatic pings executed on each IP, so that you know the status of the devices behind those particular IP. The competitors in the market do not consider a delegated scope, like they don't take any accountability for the delegated scopes. But in DDI Central, we make sure we do not involved much, but we make sure that the admin is informed if a particular the device behind a particular IP is active or not through automated pings to check the status of those IPs. And then we have the VLAN module where you can have hands-on control over the IP address inventory behind a particular VLAN. And then we have the manage IP page where the IP address inventory behind a particular subnet is being listed. Here you can see the availability states of a particular IP of the IPs within a subnet. So you can have hands-on control over these IPs. So when you click on a free or available IP, it will directly take you to the host page. In case if you're busy troubleshooting an issue and if certain users are having trouble joining the network, you can immediately click on an available or free IP and provide them an immediate relief by assigning them a fixed IP address rather than keeping them waiting. You can just do that and you can start concentrating on your troubleshooting process. And if these availability states reflect the type of IPs within the subnet. So if the IP is available, it has not been assigned to any devices at all. And if it's active, it's been actively leased out by the DHCP server. And if it's an active reservation, it has been in an active DHCP reservation. Or if it's an inactive reservation, the device is inactive. And if it's reserved in a reserved state, it's basically a designated state where you haven't declared the IP address within the active range. So we had an option where you declare the range. So if your if certain IPs do not fall within the active range, it will be moved to the reserved status. Please do not confuse it with the DHCP reservation. It's like designated IP address or undeclared IP address. So and then we have the excluded IP addresses. So you mentioned the excluded range within a subnet. So all those excluded ranges are shown over here. And all those leases that been declined or expired will also be reflected in this donut plot. So you can see the various availability states of the IP address within a particular subnet. You can see the overall subnet usage. So if it's nearing exhaustion, the admin can easily make some plans to balance the capacity. So this helps in taking effective decisions regarding capacity planning. So that's about the IPAM module. And also you have the options where you can see the DNS relations behind a particular IP within the subnet inventory. Here you'll be able to see the associated DNS records, and along with it, you'll be able to test these IP's status using ping and telnet. Here you can customize the port number when it comes to the telnet test, and then you can also view the IP address, the MAC address behind a particular IP. So you have the option where you can see the host MAC address and the host name along with it. So you can easily view it through throughout this inventory page. Yeah, that gives you wholesome details about the IP inventory behind a particular subnet. And let's focus on the integrations part. So we've introduced two major integrations in our latest release. So we've introduced integration with ManageEngine Endpoint Central. So basically, why did we introduce this is because you know the IP and you know the host behind a particular IP, but you don't know most of the details. You don't know if it is secure, if it is safe, if it has got itself patched, and if it's vulnerable or not. So in order to derive risk insights, we've integrated with Endpoint Central. Here on, when you get into the lease page, when you get into a particular subnet, say select a subnet, and if you get, so for this you need Endpoint Central license. Only then you'll be able to integrate, bring about this integration, the insights derived from this integration. So when you drill down this DHCP lease for a device that is managed via Endpoint Central, you can click through the monitor icon, and you can see the whole devices summary, like it's detailed OS device details, disk usage, and the whole device summary. So you can see the whole endpoint system details are mentioned over here, and then you can see the patch summary. You can see the missing patches. You can see if the device is vulnerable or not. You can derive the risk insights by just viewing through these sections, the vulnerability and the patch summary. So you can see how the severe vulnerabilities associated with these devices using the CVSS score. So we have two types of score, CVSS 2 and CVSS 3. Based on this, you can analyze the type of vulnerabilities lingering within a device, and then you can take actionable insights, like you can take over these devices and you can isolate them, or you can quarantine them using DHCP MAC filtering. And that's how you can easily isolate devices. You can easily know which device to trust or which device to eject from your network. And that's about the endpoint central integration. And the other major integration that we've introduced is the cloud observability integration. We already have had this integration before, but we only managed domain names from prominent cloud providers. But we've introduce cloud observability, where you integrate with AWS and monitor its cloud assets. So with this multi-vendor DNS integration through a cloud observability module, you bring in domain names from all these prominent providers. You migrate it basically, and you manage them. And whatever changes that you make within the DDI Central interface will be synced to the relevant cloud provider, and whatever changes that you make through the cloud console will be reflected in here. So there is a two-way synchronization taking place. You can create a new domain, or you can make amends to the DNS records of a particular domain name. So for this, you'll have to create a separate cluster called the Cloud Observability Cluster, and then you'll have to set up the provider profile, choose the provider of your choice, and then you can select, give the credentials, and then you can choose the services that you would like to opt in for. And then you can just get into the DNS module, and you can see the domains discovered from the from your account in the cloud provider's infrastructure. So all these domains will be listed in here, just like how you manage your hosted domains that you housed in your DNS servers. You can just click through a domain name and you can start managing its records. And you can always sync the records so that they stay up to date, and you can export those records whenever you want. And the interesting part is we capture the audit logs for all the changes that you make to these domains and to these zones, and you can submit it for compliance. And this is how the audit logs are captured. So it gives you visual plot of all the actions performed on the managed on the cloud providers zones. And then you can get into the IPAM module, and you'll see we've kickstarted the cloud observability with AWS network assets. We plan to extend it to Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, GCP, and we are planning to integrate with these two services as well. And for now, we've just visualized and correlated assets from AWS, like VPCs, EC2, ECS, and RDS instances. So we bought in these devices, these resources, where you can monitor them. We also provide rich correlations, and you can see the whole global footprint of these resources. Suppose if you are interested in the VPC subnets, you can just choose the VPC subnet, and then you can see its whole global footprint. So you can see in what availability zones it's available, and the whole count under a particular availability zone. And then you can see the top 5 utilized subnets, top 5 underutilized subnets. So, and the EC2 instances states and VPC subnet states, all that you can monitor it using our interactive dashboard. So you can choose the instance of your choice, and then the dashboard will be customized as per the chosen instance. You can easily dive into the respective cloud asset. So you can, if you're interested about VPCs, just choose VPC and you can choose the availability zone first. So here, if we choose Hong Kong, it will show you essential stats. So its availability state and the availability within the Asia Pacific region. And then you can click on specific VPC in the particular availability zone, and then you can see how it relates with other resources within the cloud providers infrastructure. So you can see its relation to a particular subnet, to the subnets it's associated with, or the instances, network interfaces, load balancers, DB instance, and tags. You can also look in through the tags associated with a particular VPC. So this shows how the resources are stitched together. So it shows subnets, how a subnet is stitched to other resources like VPCs and RDS instances and load balancers. So you basically connect the dots between your AWS network assets. For instance, if you take a subnet, you can see the top 5 utilized subnets, how it's being fragmented, and its network address and how it's being fragmented, and the if it's whether if it's either IPv6 only or IPv4 only, its whole usage and everything can be tracked with this visualization, and you can see the essential correlations. This is how an admin thinks, right? So it's basically connecting the dots for an admin, and you can dive into each resource and you can monitor its relations with other resources, so you can have rich insights about your AWS cloud native assets. You can see if the cluster and its services, all the tasks, each the states of each tasks, and how it correlates with other resources, and you can monitor them effectively within DDI Central interface. So that's about it. And so these are the rich visualizations that you get to see in DDI Central. And this is the roadmap for 2025. So we are planning integration with Microsoft Azure Cloud and Google Cloud Platform, GCP. And we are basically bringing in the DNS and the IPAM configurations within these these cloud native assets. And we are also planning a dynamic threat intelligence module, wherein you will have default threat feeds from our own ManageEngine service called Cloud DNS. And if you have integrations or licenses with prominent threat vendors, you can also bring in threat feeds from those vendors into DDI Central. So this will be imported into the DDI Central's DNS firewall block list. So any attempt to access this growing domain names will be the users will be blocked access. I mean, they will not be able to access these particular domain names. And if you feel they are infected or something, you can easily quarantine them with the DNS threat intelligence. So we are going to introduce DNS DR as well, so you can have effective response to these malicious or infected endpoints within your infrastructure. And we're also going to introduce in integration with Zoho's AI engine called Zia. So this will help you proactively detect and neutralize domain generation algorithm based threats. And we are going to introduce DDoS protection templates. And since most of our prospects have asked for Cisco DHCP management via Cisco Meraki switches, we are also planning to introduce that as well. And we are also extending our DHCP support for IEC Kia as well. And we are also extending the DHCP management for firewalls. DHCP management, via firewalls. So we have plans for integrating Cisco and FortiGate firewalls within DDI Central. So basically, we'll be doing DHCP management using DDI Central. So that's what we've planned for the whole of 2025, and we are actively working on it. So that's about it. Thank you for taking the time to be a part of this webinar. We hope this webinar has been both informative and transformative. If you have any further questions or would like to continue the conversation about how DDI Central can benefit your organization, our team is here to help. Here's our support email ID. Please shoot us a mail at ddi-support@manageengine.com. We value your suggestions. So please write your suggestions to us. This is your host, Akshara, signing off. Thank you.